Hello, friends. Happy Friday. Thanks for dropping by the Friday conversation. Hope you all had a good week, and thanks for hanging out with us. This week we do have Dan and Colin, two fellow booktubers. Glad to have them here. So, Dan and Colin, Dan, can you give us an introduction?
Yeah, my name is Dan. I run a very small YouTube channel called the Black and Blue Collar Reader. It's a mouthful, but come by, check me out.
Nice. And Colin?
Yeah, my name's Colin from the channel Colin's Corner. If you couldn't figure that one out, but similar to Dan, I just recently, within the last couple months, started a YouTube channel to talk about books, and it's been so much fun to meet so many people and to become part of things like this
Mhm.
is something that I've always looked forward to because I love watching these live discussions, and it's how I've actually met most of the booktubers that I follow like religiously now. It's just I feel like I got to know them through stuff like this, so
Mhm.
this is exciting.
Nice. Glad you could make it. And of course, we're here with my fellow co-host PL. PL, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm just the guy that, I bring Steve his coffee and I carry his bags around
Oh
and stuff.
God,
And,
cut it out.
hang out, pretend that I'm a booktuber, but I don't really have a channel. So there you go. Well, actually, no, technically I do.
It's
I do.
coming, right? From what
It's
I hear,
coming.
It
it's
is
coming,
coming.
right,
It is
PL?
coming.
All right,
It is coming. So,
good.
Things are happening. Things are happening.
yeah.
Yes, things are happening. So, Dan and Colin, what has your experience been like the first few months of having a channel? What surprised you? What have you enjoyed? What have you not enjoyed? Tell us all about it.
Well, I will just jump in here and go for it. Okay, you don't have to ask me twice. Um, what do I enjoy about it? I gotta say, it's the community that I have grown to come to know in Discord, on your page chilling Discord and things. And just being able to talk about books. Like I my friends are into like Philly sports, and like I really have no book friends. So I need to, and my wife and my kids are tired of me blurting out what's going on in these books, and they don't give a shit. And I'm just like, oh my God, this happened. Like, what do you think? You think he's gonna live? And I have nobody to talk to when it comes to this stuff. So that was the best when I got out there. And of course, when you jump in the Malazan, everybody wants to talk about Malazan. You get like 90 conversations going on, and it's good. And I'm just like, am I missing something here? Especially, like I read R. Scott Baker, so definitely I miss something. And then you get out in the community and you start getting to know people, and they tell you, what's going on. And you're like, all right, that's great. And I would say the hardest thing to do, like I came to BookTube because I wanted people's reviews on books. I have just started out my fantasy reading journey, becoming addicted to reading within the last few years. And
Hmm.
I wanted to find out what is going to appeal to me. So I went out to the BookTube community, and then I decided to do my first uh, review on one of the hardest books I have ever read in my life. I don't know why I thought that was a smart idea, but I did it on Baker's A Darkness That Comes Before. And that thing is, and to do a book review, so I'm moving into what I think is the difficult part. It's easy. I haven't even put out like, hey, here's my TBR. This is, here's my mid-month wrap up. I haven't done that. I do book reviews. And then you're like, that was one of my things is why I wanted to get out there, is because I want to learn how to verbalize my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences when I read these books. And verbalizing that is not as easy as you would think. To do a book review on one book can be tough. And I work from home nowadays, and I don't speak to nobody. And I need to talk. If you can't see, I keep talking, but and I will give up the mic in a second. But I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to learn how to speak intelligently about reading books, and not just like, hey, book good, you know, review over. You know, I wanted to be able to learn how to speak better, and that's one of the the hardest things I have come to see, because you get out there, these channels, there are some very intelligent people on BookTube, and it's intimidating. So when I read a book and I go see them, and they're talking like a a scholar. I want to make sure that I can match that. And I am a dude from the streets of Jersey, and it's difficult, but I like a challenge, and that's what I did.
Nice. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, so I don't want to say I've been a lurker for the past 3 years because I've been involved in different discords and different communities. Um, funny thing is, like, I didn't really know, like, BookTube. I know there's so many little niches of YouTube. I didn't know BookTube existed. Like, I didn't purposefully seek it out, but I remember I read, this was like 3 years ago, one summer on vacation, I bought 11/22/63 by Stephen King on a whim. I'd never read any Stephen King before. I don't know why I picked that, like, cinder block of a book, but I did, and I loved it. And, like, so I started, like, going on YouTube just to figure out, like, more books to read, and it kind of led me into BookTube, and then more specifically, like, fantasy horror BookTube. And then I started meeting all these people and gaining so much more from the books that I was reading. And I wanted to, it was on the back burner, kind of simmering for probably 2 years. Like, should I just start a channel? And then I was like, nah, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I don't have equipment. I don't have blah, blah, blah. And it all just eventually was just like a bunch of excuses, I think. And what kind of led me to it was similar in a way to what Dan said. I'm currently in school right now to become hopefully an elementary school teacher someday. And I struggled there's not a lot of people besides, like, my mom, who was in the chat earlier. So hi, Mom, and everybody else. But there's not a lot of people in my direct life that read. I have a couple of friends that do, and we have, like, a little, we call it a homies book club. But I struggled to articulate why I enjoyed books. I struggled to figure out, like, myself, why some things worked for me and why some things didn't work for me. And, watching reviews and stuff like that and discussions helped me to kind of narrow that down. But I figured it would be good for me to get out of my comfort zone, get in front of a camera, get uncomfortable, and try to formulate my thoughts and just kind of see where it goes. Like, I didn't really have any definite plans when I started the channel. I just seen a lot of advice was, you don't need a camera. You don't need a mic. If you have a smartphone, make a video and put it out there. And the community is so welcoming and supportive, and my experience thus far has been nothing but positive. So I'm super happy that I did this, for sure.
Nice. Shout out to Colin's mom. Thanks for dropping by. That's awesome. Our friend Alicia grew up right outside of Philly. So you're not alone.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to be dropping a BookTube channel, right? Birdie on Books.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that. I remember us chatting about a channel you might drop. So let me know. I like supporting our indie booktubers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ready for that.
Yeah, that channel is live too, so everyone be sure and go check it out.
Okay, great.
Christopher, good afternoon. Punk Rock Cereal Bowl. What's funny for me is I work in a bookstore, so I find someone to talk sports with is a hard thing. I just want to talk NBA sometimes.
Robert, hit me up. I'm a massive NBA fan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Look.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Congratulations.
Hey, Sean. NBA. Hey,
I
Sean.
know Sean's an NBA fan.
Yeah.
Sean's my boy.
We I saw Sean at a con. I think it was London Comic Con, and we talked sports too when we were there. Like, he came to my booth and we talked. He knows his stuff. So yeah.
Sean knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, a great point. When you love reading, you just want to share that love with like-minded people, which is very true.
Yeah, for sure.
And Alicia's channel is live now, so everyone be sure.
Oh, yeah, I gotta go Check that
Right.
out.
I will look that up shortly.
I gotta
Sure.
subscribe. Online community.
Mhm.
Dan, we need to clear the air here because I don't want to have any problems down the road. But I'm from Pittsburgh, man.
Unfortunately, my wife is a Steelers fan.
Okay.
Now,
Whoa.
if she was,
You guys still
and
married?
she's not allowed. Like she has a Pittsburgh towel and a Pittsburgh cup, and they cannot be anywhere near my stuff. Like I will, like if the Pittsburgh towel is the only one in the bathroom, when I get out of the shower, I am freaking drip drying. The only good thing is that if she was a Dallas Cowboy fan, that's a deal breaker. We probably wouldn't have gotten married. I'm actually a newlywed. Her and I got married this past August, and yes. But if she was a Dallas fan, I don't think it would work.
So is it an actual terrible towel that she has?
She has a terrible towel, and she has an actual beach towel with Steelers, and I will not use it. I will not use it.
That's awesome.
That's
And
funny.
look who's in the chat.
Hey, Epic.
Oh,
We were just talking about you.
Yeah,
Yes,
Good
we
stuff.
were.
Good stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Epic, if you are able to and you want to join us, shoot me a DM and I'll send you the link if you're
that
available.
would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to have
man.
Epic on. Yeah,
Get him going.
he's a man. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. Philly fans, they're hardcore, man.
Yes,
we
they are.
Hardcore.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm. I bleed green. I was born into a Philly family. I was born in Wilmington, Delaware, but I grew up in Atlantic City. And I everything is Philadelphia for me. Like that was my one passion, and it's funny because reading has wiped that. Like I will watch every Eagles game because it's football. Like you get one game a week. But I used to watch Flyers and the Phillies and the Sixers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started reading. And then I started reading while I had the game on. And then I started making YouTube YouTube videos. Now people are expecting my videos, so I need complete freaking quiet when I read. So I haven't watched my hockey team or my basketball team in quite some time. But hey, once the playoffs are starting, and my boy Embiid, he's going to be ripping it up. So paying attention.
Yeah. I'm a Washington fan and have been for life. And the same thing, Dallas is a deal breaker. Same thing for me because obviously that's our rivalries. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you're all right with me, man.
That's See, I think you're lower on the totem pole for me. So it goes like Dallas, the Giants, and then you, because those are because you guys are in my conference, right? So I'm gonna dislike that anybody, even if I don't have friends that are Dallas fans, because I will destroy you. If you don't live in Dallas and you're a Dallas fan, you're gonna have a conversation, and you need to give me a good reason why you are a Dallas fan. And if you're a Dallas fan, still subscribe to my channel.
It's funny. I became a Washington fan because all my friends growing up were Dallas fans, and I hated Dallas. I hated the whole image. Cowboys are pretty boys, and the cheerleaders and all. Oh, everybody loves cheerleaders, but still. So then, who was their natural rival? Washington. So then, then the Fun Bunch, and it just became like the Hogs, and it just became just my team. And I'm a loyal guy, so still a Washington fan. So
yes,
and a big football fan in general. So for sure.
Autocorrect hates me. So PL, what on something that Colin mentioned is kind of finding out how to verbalize thoughts, and I think both Dan and Colin mentioned it in reviews. How do you do that? How do you verbalize your thoughts? Because you write some great reviews. How do you do that? How do you process what you read and then convey that to others?
I try and keep it simple. I shouldn't say that because mine could be kind of long sometimes, and I'm long-winded sometimes. But I just basically divide into 6 parts, and I keep to that formula. So I have a formula. So first thing I talk about is I give a general synopsis. Then I talk, and I try not to give away too much spoilers. Then I'll get into the characters because I'm a big character-based reader, so characters is usually the first thing I talk about. Then I'll talk about, normally I'll talk about, I mix it up sometimes. Typically I'll talk about the themes next. Then I'll talk about the world building. Then I'll talk about the action or battle scenes or things like that. And then if there's a magic system, I may throw that in the world building. You know, it's kind of like a secondary point, but sometimes it's like the 6th point. And then typically I'll wrap up with the prose. And then in terms of breaking down the book and basically what worked for me, what didn't. And then I'll give an overall summary and say, you know, this is why the book is good, et cetera, or what, you know, what didn't work for me. So I kind of stick to a script, and I found that works for me, right? So it keeps me organized, keeps me on track. And when people read my reviews, they kind of know what to expect, right? So that's how I do it. So.
Are you, Colin?
So I've only released a couple dedicated book reviews, and the reason for that is because I'm still kind of toying with the structure of it, but I like the idea, and I kind of do something a little similar. It's a little less structured than PL's right now, but the couple that I did, my main goal was that, you know, when I'm reviewing a book, if it's listed as a dedicated review, what I tried to do is talk about the books from just an objective standpoint. Like, what did I observe? What is the book about? What types of characters are we dealing with? What themes stuck out to me? And, you know, I've been trying to leave out whether I enjoyed the book or not until the end, because a lot of times whenever I'm watching a review, there's certain people that I know, like, if they like something, I like it. But if I'm just stumbling upon someone that I'm just watching for the first time, them telling me in the beginning for 5 minutes how much they loved the book doesn't do a lot for me, because I don't know their reading taste. I clicked on the video because I want to know if I should invest $15, $20 into this book and spend, I don't know, 15, 20 hours reading it. And so, like Dan, I was out of reading for a while. In the last 2 or 3 years, I've kind of been reading a lot, and I've been able to kind of hone in what I enjoy in books. So if the review is objective and it talks about elements of the book and themes and stuff like that, then I'm able to, you know, kind of figure out if it's something that I would like. So that's kind of how I approach my reviews right now. But like I said, I've only reviewed a couple books. So I'm still like toying with that a little bit, but that's my goal, is to just talk about elements and then leave whether or not I liked it till like later on in the video.
Yeah, I think you guys can see by just how I talk on this on this live that I have a script. But when you're talking, I don't really stick to nothing, you know. Like I remember like my first review was horrible. It was so bad. And like I said, I reviewed like The Darkness That Comes Before. That is such a hard book to review if you are a newer reader. But yes, you should be sticking to, like, you know, synopsis, characters, writing, plot, blah blah blah, right? But then I start talking, and you can tell I get animated, right? And I just go off on a tangent. Like I'll forget something or I'll remember something. So when you're speaking, it's so much different. Like when PL was talking about him writing a review, yeah, I wish I could speak how I write, because there's a fucking filter there. You know, there's really not. I'm sorry. I'm gonna curse.
Let's go for
I
it.
hope
That's all right. Go for it.
there's gonna be. I said I was gonna have a swear jar, right? Collins call it. I was gonna bring a swear jar, and I was gonna
Don't
put
worry
a
about
dollar
getting
in
it, man. Don't worry about it.
each time, because I'm working on this. Like I'm a newer father. You know, I have step kids who are my kids. And you know, I'm trying not to curse as much. So yeah, there I usually stick to a script. Hold on, I see that Joanne or Joanna's in the chat. So hey, Joanna, your favorite person's here. She loves seeing my Iggy Smalls here, my little dog. So I wanted to show her that. But
Joanna.
yeah, when you're writing a review, you have time to think. And you know, when you're somebody like me, like I don't use big words when I talk to guys. Like, you know, I'm gonna talk to you like if I see you on the street. So when you write a review, I have time to, like, you know, use the bigger words. But when I'm on a video, that escapes me. And sometimes I will write out what I want to say, but then I feel like I'm reading off a script, and you're not getting me. You're not getting like everybody talks about my, you know, I get comments about my enthusiasm on books. Of course I'm going to be enthusiastic on books. I don't have an extensive library. All my books that I read are suggestions from you guys from YouTube. So I've yet to read a bad book unless it's not for me, which is more, you know, yeah, I'm gonna say it. It's like Sanderson and the Wheel of Time. That's just not me, you know. I like a darker tone. I like I hate to say real, but I'm gonna say it, a real character, somebody that I relate to. And some of the typical fantasy that's out there that isn't as dark, I find it hard for me to relate to characters.
And EpicTalez has entered the chat. Epic, welcome. Glad you could
Epic.
make it.
Yeah,
Epic, what up?
it's always, hi guys. It's always such fun to be on Steve's channels on these Friday discussions. I haven't been here in such a long time, but I can assure you I've missed being here and just being part of these discussions. So I came in around the time Collins was talking about like reviews that he likes, about how he doesn't really like the ones where like they just get off like right from the start. They just start talking about what they like about the book. And I have to say I'm completely guilty of that. Like I do not typically review books that I don't like because I put a lot of time into each reviews with the animations and everything. So yeah, like I just it's something that I just can't help. But I can 100% see your perspective. Like I actually never looked at it that way. And as for what Dan is talking about, he's calling himself this new reader, you know, trying to get sympathy with the subscribers. But he showed his collection one of his previous videos, and he has read all the epics, like most of the epic books, you know. And his channel is really interesting. I was also surprised to find out that he scripts as well, because it always seems so natural, and there's this intention to entertain, which I really, really enjoy. So it's for anyone who like is people who watch Dan's channel will love him, like for his personality as well as his book reviews. So it's a channel that I'm really enjoying so far.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. Punk Rock Cereal Bowl. I'm an Eagles fan right now for Jalen Hurts. He played one season at the University of Oklahoma and became a huge fan of his.
Yeah, I'm gonna create another YouTube account and go double subscribe to your channel, buddy.
Yeah.
Robert has an awesome channel, by the way. If you guys haven't watched his channel,
he does these punk songs with reviews in it. At least one of them I saw was like that.
Yeah.
So cool, so different. And he throws out, you know, like other tube, like what he enjoyed in booktube. Like when I'm at work, that's all I'm doing, man, is I'm listening to booktube while I'm trying to, you know, get my work done. I wish I could listen to audiobooks, but you know, I put in an estimate, you know, in my system for my job, and next thing you know, it's 4 chapters later and I missed the whole thing. And like, if I'm going to do a review on this, you know, I can't miss stuff, you know. But yeah, go check out Punk Rock Cereal Bowl. Not only an excellent channel name, but an excellent channel as well.
So I have a question. Who has read the Book of Eden, Philip's book?
Oh yeah, I have.
Ooh, how is it? How is it?
It was really good. It's really
good, eh? Like watching Phil's channel, I have such high expectations because I don't know, he has this aura about this writing or about him and just the way he reviews books. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading that one. Really, really looking forward.
What do you think, Colin? You read it?
I'm halfway through, like literally, I think I'm 5 pages away from being like exactly 50% of the way through. And I tweeted recently that I'm really enjoying it so far. It's like it feels like a really cool blend of like it's got a classic fantasy like ambiance, but definitely a modern feel to it. And like somehow still Philip was talented enough to make it all of that, but have a unique voice. So like I'm really enjoying the journey so far. It's starting to pick up. So I can't wait to see where he decides to leave me after book 1. Thankfully, I don't have to wait too long to get to the second book.
Yeah. I thought it was great, epic. I actually, it's funny. Like I know Gwyn is one of the influences in Tolkien, and you can see that in there. But a lot of parts it reminded me of. I don't know if anybody's read Illborn by Daniel T. Jackson. Oh, there he is himself. Oh, Mr. Chase himself. It kind of had a bit of that Illborn vibe where, it was like no one is safe. It had that character stuff that I really loved, and it had those morally gray characters that I can't get enough of. I wanted more of those particular characters, but but one thing I'll say, especially for Philip's book, it's exceptionally well done, and he does. People say, "Oh, okay, there's a lot of tropes in there," but he does them well. He does them well, and he does some subversion of tropes that it's really good. Great action scenes, it was good, and that prologue was like, wow.
Yes.
Prologue was awesome. Prologue was that was slam. That was slamming.
Hook, line, and sinker. I was in.
Yeah. Philip, you're out there. We got to have Philip back on the show to chat about his books. But it was phenomenal. I put it, gave it a 5 stars up on Goodreads. To put it on Before Go blog, and really enjoyed it.
Well, so much for lowering expectations. I'm sorry, Phil. Like my expectations are high.
He can take the hype, man. This is one of the most hype books coming out, indie books coming out this year. Everybody was all over, look at him now. I mean, I think Philip's got something like 120, 130 reviews on Goodreads already. Right?
Wow.
Man, it is blown up, right? And if you look at the caliber of people that provided him cover endorsements, things like that, Jenny Wirtz, Mark Lawrence, Estelmont, John Gwynn, obviously, the man can write, or else writers of that caliber aren't putting their name behind his book. So, a lot of credibility, a lot of gravitas comes with having those people.
I remember visiting Philip's channel for the first time, and just automatically thinking, once he dropped an amazing review, I can't remember what book. I'm like, dude, this guy's probably an accomplished writer already. And this is my first introduction into booktube. I was like, oh, he's got to have a book already. And then all of a sudden he doesn't. And then he drops one. And I just think it's an amazing experience that all of us get to experience his journey. And it's actually so intimate. He's like, hey, I'm dropping a book, and he's in the community, and we all get to see, we got to see a cover reveal. We got to see, I think there was an audio, there was something about the audio, and it's cool to see this journey. And which is even cooler is this is a decade-long project of his, and to see it getting accepted so positively. I just think it's so cool to be for all of us. Back in the day, we didn't get to witness this stuff. When whoever it was, Erickson and who's the scary guy, the American
Baker.
Baker, yeah, Baker, but King. When they were dropping books, we didn't get to witness all of this, everything that is going on. And it's just so cool to you're kind of a part of it, because we all know Philip from his channel. So we're all rooting for it. Obviously, if Philip, man, you're rooting for that guy.
Big time.
That
Big
guy
time.
is such a nice guy,
Yeah.
And it's just, I just feel it's really cool that we get to kind of live his journey with him and dropping this book.
Yeah. Well said. And just, this is someone who's so generous and giving of their time to others, and you just automatically want to give back, right? And so many of us just ran to get that book, just ran, pre-order, like just get it, jump on it, get it. And, we're so anxious to read it because we generally want to read it because, like you said, because it's Philip Chase, and we know that, how articulate it is and how insightful it is. We feel, okay, yeah, this guy's book's got to be good. And it was, right? So I can't wait for number 2. Can't wait. So yeah, really, really hyped.
Nice. And Drew's here. Hey everyone, sorry I'm late. I've been enjoying other con videos, Steve, and hearing people's favorite hot sauce. That was a popular question, Drew. That was a good one.
It's Frank's. It's definitely Frank's.
Frank's got a lot of votes.
Frank's got 1 vote today that I saw. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets more. There's more videos.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Lots of Franks.
Well, yeah. Hope he's enjoying sharing with the community. Well, we're honored that you're sharing it with us, Philip. And like I said, we can't wait to see where it goes, book 2 and 3.
For me, it's been interesting because most of the time at least recently, now that there's so much content on the internet, like I'll get really into an author and then I will go seek out like interviews. So I feel like I get to know them better and like hear their thought process. Cause you read like, I don't know. I mean, like Dan and everyone here, we read some dark stuff.
Yeah.
So like part of me, before I go see any interviews or hear the author talk or even see their face, I'm like, man, what the heck goes through their mind? Oftentimes I'll hear them in an interview and like, they're the nicest people like in the world. I'm like, how is this stuff coming out of their mind? With Philip, it's been interesting because it's kind of the reverse. I've been watching him for like over 2 years now. And, like on Jimmy's channel and doing videos with Alan, who is doing the audio. I'm buying the audiobook too, just because I want to hear Alan.
Yeah. Gotta do
but
that.
I feel like I've gotten to know Philip before his book release, just through his videos and these discussions and stuff. And so it's like been like the reverse of like a normal fandom. Like, like I love Stephen King. I read a ton of Stephen King books. I go watch interviews. Same with Robin Hobb, whoever, you know what I mean? And for Philip, it's like I got to know him, then he released a book. So it's been cool to see like, wow, this guy, like he came up with all this. That's really cool.
Yeah, definitely cool. And one thing that, especially for me, because I have the dual hats, writer and reviewer, it's like just the amount of respect I have for Philip for, I think Dan messaged it. I think it was something like 20 years. Philip can correct us. I think this is like a 2-decade thing in the making with Dan, and now finally it's come to fruition. Like that's like wow. That just that just makes you feel warm inside, man. That he's living the dream. You know what I mean? And again, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So yeah.
By the way, Pio, what you mentioned there, like wearing 2 hats as a reviewer and as a reader as well. Like, do you sometimes find conflict where you can enjoy something as a reader but not as a reviewer, or as a reviewer but not a reader?
Well, I think if I was gonna, Epic, that's a great question. I think for me, if it was gonna be a conflict, it'd be more as a writer, with my writer hat on, because but I don't do that when I read. I'm totally I'm lucky. I can just read for pure enjoyment. I have friends that are writers like, well, I can't read this because I find myself editing it and looking for I don't look for any of that, man. I just sit back, days like this, which is nice at a day off, pour a glass of rum and sit back and just get the book and just read and just zone out, let myself just be carried away by the universe. 18 years, there you go. And for Philip's, kudos to you, Philip. Yeah. So I think as a reviewer though, like one thing I'll say is when I get to where it's near the end, I find myself automatically going back and start to review the book and think about all the things I want to say. I do tend to take notes. If it's a book I know I'm going to review and put a review on Goodreads, especially if it's a prominent book, like something that I think people will be interested in, I'm going to take notes along the way. Like I'll stop. I might read a couple chapters, jot down a few notes, and then go back, keep reading, and then stop again. But yeah, like I don't have an issue. I just zone out, man. When I read a book, I want to get that pure pleasure, right? There's as you get older, there's you want to savor things in life, and I just want to savor like reading that book, right? And just yeah. So no, it's pretty easy for me now to just read the book. I'll take notes for the review, but I just want to enjoy it.
So for me, like I really, really wish I could do that. Like when I'm reading, because I'm still like at a phase in my writing like thing, my writing dream, where like there are things, a lot of things I want to integrate into my writing. So for instance, like if there's a chapter of a book that I like and like I really read it and I really enjoy it, right? When I can't like, and so when I usually enjoy it, the writer part automatically just shuts off. That's when I enjoy it as a reader. Now, if I enjoy something as a reader that much, then I go back and I literally word for word copy down each word just to see what he did technically, just to chop it up, you know. And I find that like I can enjoy something just as a reader because of the soul of the book itself, but not enjoy it as a writer because I do not like how it was put together. But I can also enjoy something as a writer and not as a reader. And I feel like The Prince of Nothing was one where my head was just like scattered all over the place. I was just like, I don't know what to do with this book. It was just like really good.
Malzahn was like that for me. Malzahn. Sorry, again. Did I?
No. So Baker, I would say, is somebody who's helped me grow as a reader in more ways than 7. So I my journey as a reader is a weird one. Like in my 20s and 30s, I did not read. I did my college thing and I got out, and I did not read any books. And then of course I'm one of those whose Game of Thrones came out, and like that was for me. I love that show. That was right down my alley. Dark fantasy, political intrigue. And I was like, I need these books, right? And then it ended and I was lost and I needed something else. So that's when I finally, and I did dabble into fantasy. If I went to a library, like I would look for fantasy because that's what I enjoyed. And my reading really didn't kick off until like my 40s, and I started avidly reading. And then you get on the booktube and you see people breaking down books like so perfectly, right? And they're talking about thematics, and they're talking about prose, and they're talking about tone and world building. And I was warned when I got Baker by Slowly Read, Mark's channel, one of my all-time favorite channels out there. I was warned to go out there and get my reading muscles up, right? And so I was getting swole on freaking, other all these books, right? Joe Abercrombie is who Joe Abercrombie is who set the brain off. I read Joe Abercrombie and I became a book addict. And I just had to find, but I was reading to enjoy, for enjoyment. I wasn't reading to become more intelligent. And Baker is somebody who, I'm going to look up who Nietzsche is. I didn't know who that guy was, and I'm looking up what Ubermensch means. And I'm looking into the Crusades, from as a historical. And I was just, that man, he just this is deeper. And then once I read Baker, I started to read other books, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand thematics. We get into Deadhouse Gates and trauma that has been experienced by Fellison, and people can see her character and be like, wow, she's a horrible person. Well, sweetheart, like if you went through what Fellison went through, like you would be a horrible person too. So there was just, I would say R. Scott Baker just opened Pandora's box into, viewing literature and fantasy. I know that's a big topic out there, as something that can be, viewed in with all literature and not just put in its own little category.
What about you, Colin? Who melted your brain, or who has melted your mind?
Stephen King. That was like what got me back into like the swing of reading fiction and being like wanting to spend all my free time reading. And I started with, like I said earlier in the stream, with 11/22/63, and then I found I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jaime and Fuego over at the Horror Channel, but I don't know how he does it. He compiled this entire list of what to read to go with the Dark Tower series, like any Stephen King book that has any ties to the Dark Tower, and it's 18 or 19 books long. So that is what I did the year after I got into reading, is I followed his list all the way through because I wanted to read more King and I wanted to finish the Dark Tower. So it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone. And I did that whole list, and that I mean, maybe it wasn't the best fantasy series to start because it is a little bizarre, but it just got me hooked, and it kind of I still am very, I don't know if underread is the right word, but I have so many. I just read Lord of the Rings for the first time last year. I own Abercrombie. I own the First Law. I haven't read it yet. I own the Malazan books. I haven't started them yet, but I'll be doing those later this year. There's so much that I still want to get to, but it just kind of King led me into doing more booktube research, I guess, which kind of led me towards the fantasy horror genres, which I seem to really enjoy. Those click with me the most. And so it's an endless rabbit hole. Once I find an author I want to read their influences, and then I love their influences. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like music for me. I see who this artist that I love, where did they get their influence? And I dig backwards. It's been a lot like that with authors for me. So the last 2 or 3 years have been a lot of acquiring books and trying to read to catch up with what I've acquired.
I totally feel that. I feel like I'm behind, and everybody has. You get on the BookTube, and we all know if you're a booktuber, you have a cool looking shelf in your background, right? Look at the size of my shelf. So as compared to every other shelves that you see on BookTube, and I do feel that way. I'm trying to catch up, but I feel that readers such as you and I, Colin, or even whoever, we are not bogged down by certain trends that have gone on this entire time. I'd like to make a point about Malazan. So everybody, I've DNF'd the Gardens of the Moon. I just couldn't handle it. It was all over the place. The writing was like this, the writing was like that. And I'm a new guy, right? I haven't read, I read Harry frickin' Potter. That's the extent, of me. And I get into Erickson, and I don't have trust issues. I really don't. I trust that this author is going to take me where I need to be. And so I'm starting to read when most authors, yes, they walk you through everything, and you're it's a slow journey in there. Erickson's let me walk you. Wait, come over here, bro. Yo, check this out over here, man. And I was okay with that. And people that have read so much and are used to so many different things, when they pick up Malazan, they might have a different feeling. This author's not for me. But because I was not exposed to all of that, I trusted. I was like, let me just keep going. Okay. Let me keep going with this. Maybe he'll lead me down the right path. And boom, I was like, Gardens of the Moon was awesome for me. I thought it was really, I don't know any better because I haven't read all this other stuff. So when we jump into authors like that and people are talking like that, it just, I'm not used to a certain thing, and a certain structure of a story. My trust is with that author, and I haven't read anything bad, because I get, like I said, I get my suggestions from you guys on YouTube. And nobody steered me wrong yet, except for maybe Oathbringer. And other than
You're
that,
not alone in that sentiment.
I hope so. I hope so, because I know, I don't get me wrong. There were certain, Words of Radiance was amazing. I really dug Words of Radiance, but there, you can get burnt out, especially as a new reader. Like I got Mistborn, and then then I bought, Stormlight right after, and I was just sandered out. I tapped out, and I was just like, I went for something else. But yes, with newer readers, we are not exposed to all the good writing, all the good, story structure, and the amazing prose. We are learning as we go. So we may get a book like Gardens of the Moon, where I have seen so many people DNF, and I was like, this was very well done in my opinion. So yeah, that's just how I feel about us that are entering the game late in my opinion.
Taylor, welcome. Glad you can make it.
Hey, morning, everyone from this side of the world. Sorry, I say sorry I'm late, but these start really early for me, so I get here when I get here. But I really appreciate, you guys welcoming me in. I'm glad to be here. It sounds like I walked in on people just talking about their reading journey. It's kind of where we are in the chat so far. But I think, there's a beauty to that, not going in with expectations, for sure. And I think that's something that, people who've been reading for a long time should remind themselves sometimes, just because this isn't what I usually, reading outside of your comfort zone is essentially what I'm talking about. Just because this isn't what I usually read doesn't mean that I won't like it. So I think for me, reading different genres is how I do that. Like, I kind of know what I like in fantasy at this point. So I can know, like, oh, this book is not going to work for the kind of reading taste that I've developed. But reading other genres is what really helps me pick up on other things that I might enjoy. So I'm a big classics. I really like classics. I say that as I've been reading Moby Dick for like 15 years. But, one day that'll be finished. But I do enjoy, classics. And Steve got me into horror. So I think branching into other genres is a good way to remind myself of that. I try to do that often.
And our friend Helena had a comment. EpicTalez, your t-shirt is epic too. I need a giant nerd t-shirt too.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, we're all on booktube. We should just own it at this point.
Yeah.
I was talking to Bookborn on one live at some point. She said someone got mad at her for her intro, which was, "Hey, nerds."
Yeah.
And someone got mad. Like, I'm not a nerd. I'm like, you're watching booktube, honey. Like, I'm sorry, but I've got news for you.
I know, right? Like, there was one of my earlier videos where I had this guy, like, he'd never watched anything on my channel before, and then he goes on like for paragraphs telling me how using the word nerd is so derogatory, and like how, oh, I'm such a bad person because I put nerds on my title. And I was just like, have you watched any of my videos? He was like, no. I was like, go back and watch me. I'm like the biggest nerd, so I'm allowed to say it. But yeah, and I mean it with like all the positivity and everything, because like just like growing up, especially coming from like Nigeria, where like fantasy and like reading is not like really, it's not really a thing. Like they are nerds in Nigeria, but they are not even recognized as a group, So it's like growing up in that environment and just reading fantasy, reading about knights, reading about dragons, reading about like magic, and exploring different worlds, being in a different place, even if you're in Nigeria, like exploring like the minds of writers and everything, it's something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I get that a little bit. It's I'm sure there's a lot to say about, how do I put expectations and gender differences, because I know if you go to the statistics, there are many more women who pick up reading more at an earlier age. When you're a boy, you're expected to go out there and play baseball. And I know this is all changing, and that's wonderful. But I'm an '80s kid, and it wasn't viewed like that back then. And if you look at the statistics, there are many more males who pick up avidly reading later in their life, I believe. But where I grew up in an urban area of Atlantic City, like I expressed before, I do not have many friends who read. When I go back to my friends at high school, we're talking about sports, or we're talking about movies, or music. And when I got lucky because I had a parental figure. My aunt raised me from the time I was 10 on, and she was a reader, and she always, homed into me to be yourself and don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. And I was 25 with on the block of Atlantic City reading Harry Potter, and I didn't care what y'all thought of me. I'm gonna be me. And I got lucky in that aspect. But there's a certain expectation when you see somebody like me who sounds like me, who addresses people how I do, speak how I do. You don't you don't know that I'm a nerd at heart. It's very, it's weird. My kids are freaking embarrassed. We went to Hogwarts for vacation,
Wow.
and I'm dressed like I am now, and I got my wand with me, and I'm freaking Leviosa on people, you know what I mean? And my kid wanted a freedom sock from me. He's like, bro, let me go. My 14-year-old was like, give me Adobe freedom sock. I want to get away from you, bro. And I just I don't know. I just, expanded expectations, and reading, it's a shame, was never, all my friends, my male friends that I grew up with, I don't know one that was a reader. But I have female friends who continued to read through high school. We were kind of the hippies. They liked Jack Kerouac, Herman Hesse, and things like that. And my aunt would throw books at me, and I thought that I made sure that I got that in, because I thought reading would help me in one way or another. And I kept to it, and later on in life I found it again.
By the way, I do not know when I will get the chance to say this directly again, but this book, my God, I really, really enjoyed
Last
it.
of the Atlanteans.
Last of the
Yeah.
Atlanteans, immediately
Steve and I are like, we got to do our due diligence. It's there.
I need to get my hands on this. I've been meaning to. I haven't yet.
It's there's clearly an evolution in the writing, and the story is so engaging. I really, really enjoy. I love the direction you took. And I waited until you started announcing the third book, which should come out in July-ish.
No, third book's coming out at the end of the month, my friend.
At the end of the month, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best thing I've heard today. So
I'm so honored, Epic, that a man of your talent would say that. So thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot. So thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think you'll find Lord and King is a step up from last year.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it.
So can't wait to hear your thoughts on
You should check out the deep dive that's on Steve's channel, Epic. Now that you've read it, I think that PL's dropped some wisdom about the book in there. I think that would be good to have going in.
And if you're interested, if you get to Lord and King before, come on the deep dive. Join us with the group, with the gang, for the deep dive for Lord and King, which will be, I'm not sure when, but we'll link that up. So we'd love to have you.
Yeah,
one day when our schedule works.
I already have an artist working on the animation. It's gonna be dope. It's gonna be
wow!
really
I can't wait to see that. Man. That's wow! I'm honored. I'm so humbled. Oh, thank you. I'm so humble. Wow! Thank you.
Yeah, you shouldn't have let us know that, Epic, man. You know me, I kept hitting you up on Discord, where you at with that darkness that comes before me? It's I'm working on it. And like every 2 weeks, I'd hit him up again. Yo, where you at with that, man? Come on, get out there. It's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
busy. I'm like, I don't want to hear you're busy. Get that done.
Yeah, but like, by the way, that was very, very encouraging because sometimes I take so long on some videos and I'm just like, everyone has forgotten about me. And then, yeah, you hit me up and were like, I'm waiting for it. I'm like, okay, yes, I'm working on it. So thank you very much for that.
Your effects are crazy, man. What you do with videos, Epic, it's just mind blowing. Like, watching your channel is mind blowing. And Dan mentioned before, like, the analysis you do, man, so insightful. Like, and those short little videos, sometimes you'll have Andrew on, and like, those are gold, man. Those are gold. And the topics, the themes you discuss, oh wow, just fabulous.
Yeah,
Appreciate
who's that crazy professor guy you always have on? He speaks so fast. I'm like trying to listen to him and stuff. What's his name?
Ray. He's Dr. Ray. He's a professor of creative writing at UBC.
Love how he speaks.
Does like
He's
a writing studio now.
Yeah, he's so into it too.
Brilliant.
He's so about what he's talking about. And
yes, like I ask him one question and then he just
gone.
goes history, philosophy.
He's gone.
Like he just like he is one of the people that like when I'm having conversations with him, he makes me feel so dumb. It's like I have to read more.
I get that. My brain hurts because he's like me. He'll just keep going on different avenues and stuff like that. And yeah, I like listening to him though.
Yeah.
Those are the best people to interview. Ken Liu's like that too, because they just he's so fun to interview because you can ask one question and then he'll end up dropping like something you should remember for the rest of your life at the end of the question. And you're like, I don't know how we got here, but I'm glad we're here. You know, he's a delight to interview.
So many people on BookTube, I just feel inadequate, man. You listen to some of them, like listen to the Ken Liu's of the world, Jenny Wirt, Philip Chase, AP Canavan. Listen, after a while, it's like, okay, well, I'll just never say anything again. I'll just go zoop, and I'll just here and try and be quiet and take in some knowledge. So
sometimes I'm thinking of how am I going to articulate this idea? How am I going to think? How am I going to phrase it in a way people will understand? And then I'll look at how I said it, and I'm like, no, I don't like it. And then I watch one of their channels, and like in 4 or 5 sentences, done. They move on. They're like talking like Hemingway, right? Sometimes, so it's very, very humbling.
I've watched a lot of Phillips and AP's Malazan discussions, and I've not even read a single Malazan book. It's just interesting to see how they analyze it and how they think about the characters or the themes that they're talking about.
So when I read Dead House Gates, which is an amazing book. Everybody go read that. Get through Gardens of the Moon. So when I read that, AP Canavan, he drops these prologue videos for every Malazan thing. And like I said, like I've been explaining, I'm newer to critiquing a book and looking deeper into a book. And he dropped something about symbolism. There was a fly person in this one thing, and the words that he was using, and how something was crumbling, and is that symbolizing the state of Malazan? And I was just like, that was amazing. So now every prologue that I read, I don't care what it is, every prologue that I read, every word I am dissecting. Every word, because I didn't know prologues are really freaking important apparently, and I didn't know that until AP Canavan broke that down, and I was like, I don't want to read this book again. I just got done, but I wanted to go back and read it again and get a new feeling or experience from it. But ever since then, every prologue, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to read this twice and then we'll get into chapter 1. Because I know it's, there are tidbits throughout, but I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And it was just a channel like his can just, help you grow as a reader.
Yeah, we've all been lucky, most of us, to have some some interaction with AP on his channel. I've been on his channel for some Malazan breakdowns, and his analysis is just it's another level, right? It's next level stuff, right? And but yeah, it's funny you mentioned prologues because I've had debates with my friends about prologues for years, and about a lot of my friends are fans of prologue. I'm a big prologue fan. Prologue's done right? But in the last 4 or 5 years, I've read some of the best. Like Philip Chase's prologue is fantastic. It's fantastic. If you read Daniel Jackson's prologue for Illborn, fantastic. Tim Hardy, Hollowbones. There's some prologues out there. Miles Cameron. I just read both of his books in the Masters and Mages. Great prologues. Like when prologues are done right, they add so much to a book, man. So yeah. I love prologue. So
I'm also on the prologue loving team. Mark Lawrence, even the you guys know I can't remember words recently. What's the one? Not the Book of the Ice. Some before that.
Red
Book of the
Sister?
Ancestor.
Book of the Ancestor.
Yeah, the Book of the Ancestor starts with Red Sister. That series for me actually isn't a favorite, but I still remember that prologue because it was written so well. That one and Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, another one that wasn't my favorite in the end, but that prologue is, I remember what happened in it to this day. So I think they can really, even if the book itself doesn't end up being a favorite, a well-written prologue will stick with you. I definitely agree.
Yeah, I'm hoping you like Taylor and Steve when you get the prologue for Lord and King. I hope you like it. That's got me thinking about that. I hope you like it. And Epic, because I think you're at that stage too. So I hope you like it. I worked on that one. So.
I have faith that I will.
What about you, Colin? Is there a prologue that stands out for you that you've really enjoyed?
Well, I just read the first two Song of Ice and Fire books for the first time. And that first book, it was scary. There was more horror elements in there than I was anticipating. He put me, I had no idea. I watched the show, but I was trying, I tried to separate the show from I'm like, this is scary. I feel like I'm here and I'm cold right now. I feel like I need to get out. I just didn't expect it to be more, not sword and sorcery, but swords. And then I was like, this is a horror prologue. This is crazy. And I didn't go back and reread the prologue after, but I imagine that if I did go back and reread the prologue, there's probably a lot of stuff in there that he sets up that I wasn't paying attention to. But I made it through the first two books, and I'm on A Storm of Swords right now, and every single one of the prologues in the first three books just get me so hyped up. And like PL was saying, as soon as I read the prologue in The Way Be Damned, it's not long. I think it was 3 or 4 pages maybe. But I was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, definitely tone setting. Yeah, prologue and George R. R. Martin's prologues for Song of Ice Fire. Yeah, and it's funny, like you said, it's weird because obviously I've watched the show so many times, right? And the prologue is essentially the opening of the first episode, right? But it follows that. It's very closely matched. But yeah, it still hits me when anytime I've reread Game of Thrones, which is the first book in Song of Ice. Yeah, it's wow, it reads like horror, right? And good. Yeah. No, you're right. I agree.
And S13 Gaming. Outside of my immediate family, I know no one who reads. When someone sees me with a book, they always look at me with a raised eyebrow and disbelief. That's why I love BookTube and chats like this. I'm glad you can make it.
I think a lot of us came to BookTube because of that, a lack of people in our life that read the way we do. And just to go back to what Dan was saying earlier, I think there is for sure a gender divide in expectations, but I think there's also been a shift in recent years from what's acceptable to be when you're younger, right? So when I was younger, being a nerd or a geek or any of that was social suicide, in my high school time. But nowadays, it really seems like people wear that proudly, which is a beautiful thing. So I think there's been a shift in recent years as well, maybe with the Game of Thrones TV show and, like fantasy looking cooler. Like people thought it was just Harry Potter and wands, but now the broader population, and that's coming from someone who loves Harry Potter and wands, by the way. But but I think from the broader population now seeing it can be as vicious as Game of Thrones or that kind of thing. Same thing with anime. It's not just Sailor Moon. There's Attack on Titan as well. So I think the nerdy things have become expanded and they're considered a lot cooler now than they used to be.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think like to kind of touch on your point about like growing up, it's so hard to like avoid peer pressure or just social pressure of any kind. And, my daughter, but stepdaughter, like Dan was saying earlier, she's my daughter too. She's 7. And we just watched The Greatest Showman for the first time like a week and a half ago. She loved it. Like we're walking around the house as a family, like singing the soundtrack to like The Greatest Showman. And she's like doing the dances and she's like asking me to like recreate scenes. And I'm like, we might have like a theater kid. And like I can just see the passion and like watching stuff like that and reading again and reading with her and to her like kind of made me realize that like because I loved playing instruments and stuff growing up. My parents kind of made me, but there was also a part of me that loved it and didn't have the courage to like want to go do something like band or theater, even though I think looking back, I probably would have really loved it. And I hope that she doesn't lose that because she sees us singing around the house with her and reading books to her. And even though she might like, feel pressured someday when she gets older, I think she'll still look back and be like, no, that's the stuff that like really made me happy. And hopefully she remembers that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point about peer pressure. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut anyone off.
No,
I was just going to agree.
I think that the unfortunate thing about reading is this is a solo thing. It is something you do for yourself, right? And because you're not sharing it with somebody. As we grow, I think in our teenage years, we want that acceptancy. We want to be accepted. So, our passions, even if it was reading, they tend to take a back seat. And we are more focused on becoming accepted and to be reading, that is, you are not entering the social realm because that is something you were doing alone. But I do believe that I think this has been something that it is growing, where it is cool to be smarter. It is, I was raised like that. Like it knowledge is power. And I was always taught that. And I thought for me to be intelligent, I thought that was cool. I love that people come up to me on the street. We sit there and talk about, sports and stuff. Yeah, Jalen Hurts is great, but then I can sit there and drop it and talk about inequality in gender and race and like, and then as you get older, you expand, and I believe it. There is that time in your life where you're finding yourself and you need acceptance, but then you come back to yourself when maybe we are finally getting families and things are happening in our life, and we finally get to sit with us and we get to figure out what we like. And I believe, reading, I definitely takes off, I believe, more as we get older.
Yeah, that was essentially what I was going to say before, is that I think age has something to do with it too. Because when you get older, you start to care less what other people think. And I think that's just a fact of life. When you're younger, you care more about your peer group and the thoughts of your peer group. And then you get older and you're like, well, I don't know why I cared about that because it doesn't matter now. So I think that's just a fact of getting older as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think for as much as in some ways you get older, you may think you get more entrenched in your ways. I feel in some ways you're also more open-minded and more willing to accept things because you look at your life so differently when you have more years behind you than ahead, and you start to appreciate people more and more. You start to appreciate little things more and more, and you start to appreciate, I think you can definitely appreciate books more and more as you get older, because frankly, usually you have more time to read, right? I know for me now, being pretty well an empty nester, it's so much more time to read. Yeah, time to write and time to blog and do all those things, which are, obviously writing's a big part of my life, but reading is such a huge part of my life. And I now can sit, okay, it's a day off, and if Deb's at work, and yeah, you do the chores, you do, little things you have to do, and I write. But yeah, I can take an hour or two to read. Right? I couldn't do that, even 5 years ago. I couldn't do that. And that's been a joy, right? So yeah, absolutely.
Christopher Neville had a comment. You go to any Comic-Con nowadays, and it's not just the nerds that attend them. Now that fantasy such as A Song of Ice and Fire is mainstream, I feel like was once just for nerds, everyone seems to embrace.
Yeah. I went to the last Comic-Con I went to was a while ago. It was last year. It was London, Ontario. But yeah, it was just everybody's there. There's people you had no idea, like, you're into this stuff. I saw people I knew, like, you're into this stuff, man. Like, yeah, I love this stuff. And and there's something there for everybody. I think Comic-Cons are they're just fabulous, man. I wish I'd go to more. They're awesome.
This does bring up for me the one other thought, though, which is gatekeeping. Because for any subculture, not just nerd culture, but any subculture, when there's an influx of who is outside before starts to come into the subculture, gatekeeping always rears its head. So, talking about, what you guys were talking about earlier, you haven't read this and this, or, I suffered through my high school years being not cool, and you can't come in now and take it from me. Like, I've seen a lot of that kind of feeling. And I think most people could universally say that gatekeeping is something that we don't like. I think most people don't like gatekeeping, but it is a fact of life. So I'm wondering, everyone here is kind of at a different stage in their journey from a different part of the world. And for me, the intersection of my life that's brought up gatekeeping is definitely my gender. So, I have to prove that I am well read if I'm allowed in the space. And I've had that happen many, 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 many times where it hasn't happened to others. So I'm curious for you guys, if you've ever experienced gatekeeping, how you handled it, if you still do. Because for me, I'm just kind of used to it at this point, and it is what it is. And I've read what I've read. So I'm just wondering if anyone else has had experiences like that in this space.
So when I first opened my TikTok account, on my profile I put Lord of Grimdark, and I got a DM. It was just like, you calling yourself the Lord of Grimdark? Why do you feel you can call yourself? How many Grimdark novels have you read? And like it was a whole discussion back and forth, But and it was very funny to me because it turned out like the guy wasn't even as well read as I was, but it not that matters, but it was just the idea of someone coming like, how dare you, like you know who you're talking to, but also like what I find interesting, the psychology of that. Like, I feel like for a lot of us, and me included, like growing up, I was bullied for that. I was actually bullied for it, and it took a while for me to get over that hump of, okay, I accept this, who I am, and this is what I love. I don't care if you how you look at me as a result, And when it starts becoming mainstream now, I'm like, wow, this thing took me like 2, 3, 4, 5 years to like really accept, and you're just gonna come in all willy-nilly and just embrace it, and you skipped like that process. So I understand the psychology of it, but then also, like, from my experience of trying to get into new things, I also understand on the other side that you cannot, like, it's if someone has found something that makes them happy, it's very wrong to like to act as a hindrance. Like you're playing the role of the bully now, and just the idea of that is like, nah, like, you know what, like, if you enjoy this stuff, let's talk about it. Like, what have you read? I recommend this. Have you checked this out? Have a more like welcoming attitude towards people that are new to the space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like you never want to. I always feel like because our experiences are all so different, and because for one person, what is considered well read is not well read. Oh, but you haven't read this, and this, and when I think there's always a danger when you exclude people from a space. When you feel that you have a right to exclude people from a space, it's like saying, oh well, what's that picture on Epic's wall? Well, we know most of us will know, but it's okay, we know that's a Balrog, or at least that's Peter Jackson's representation of Balrog from Lord of the Rings, right? But if you don't know that, does that mean that, oh, you don't know anything about fantasy? Because if you knew something about fantasy, you would have read Lord of the Rings and you would watch the movie and you know that's Peter Jackson's version. And well, no, that doesn't mean you can't like fantasy. It doesn't mean you don't know a lot about fantasy. You just may never have seen the movie. That's all, right? Like and I think there's a danger when we take it upon ourselves to exclude people from a space. Like it's like we're taking ownership of that space. And I think that's really dangerous, right? And I don't think any of us have a right to exclude someone by saying, "Oh no, well, you're not well read because you haven't read, Martin, Le Guin, Backer, whatever," right? So that's what bothers me the most about gatekeeping.
I think the only gatekeeping that I experienced was the man in the mirror. It was me. So before jumping onto a booktube channel, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be seen as that guy who watched Game of Thrones, and now all of a sudden wants to jump into this world of well-read people that have read so many other things, and I'm that guy. I'm that guy who became, a reader because of that show, and I wasn't a reader because I grew up reading. So my head was telling me, don't go out there, man. You're gonna get freaking torn apart by these smart people, man. Do not post that video, bro. They're gonna tell you, And I did have one comment, somebody telling me how to say prose, or I don't know, prose was or prose is. I don't know what he was talking about. I was just nice to the gentleman, and of course, there's some bullying communities out there. If you guys didn't know, like, you jump into Malazan, you say the wrong thing, there's some sirens that go off and people are on you. But the only gatekeeping that kept me from doing anything or feeling a part was preconceived notions of what people would think about my channel, or how I speak, or how I can verbalize the books that I've read and things like that. And I'm not one to hold, like, I wanted to be a part of this community. I wanted to get out there and talk about these books that I read, and I have had nothing but positive things happen to me in this community, even in Malazan. But I got lucky because I said I liked Malazan. So, you know what I mean? I didn't make that mistake. Yeah. I almost effed up in this because I'm like, Brandon Sanderson. I DNF'd Oathbringer, and I was waiting for the comments to come up. Oh, you probably didn't get something, or maybe it's not for you. But
I'm not going to deny that those comments exist 100%, but you are in a space where people, even as a professed lover of his works, I tell Steve all the time, don't read them. You're not going to like them. So I think
telling PL on the last video that you were on with him that this might not be for you, PL. I know you like a dark character, and there really ain't so much. I watched that interview you guys did, the Casimir talk.
Yeah.
And stuff, and you are starting Words of Radiance.
The next book I did Way of Kings. So
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the next. I will get that. I got a few books in front of that, but Yeah, but you know what? I'm that kind of guy, Dan. Like what I'd like to think is that at this stage too, like I'm much more willing to do whatever and give whatever a chance because I love books. And when I see a series that so many people love, and when people I admire and respect, like Taylor, swears by Sanderson, loves him, well, maybe there's something there for me, right? Like, again, you talked about people steering wrong. Like, any rec I've got from watching Epic's channel or, watching one of your channels or Stephen Taylor, it's never steered me wrong, right? And maybe it might take a couple books for me to get there, but, I figure, why give it a shot? Because you know what? And this is what, and now I put on my writer brain hat too. I'd hate for people to like read my first book and go, it was okay, but I think I'm not saying people won't do that. But I'm saying, like, I was thinking, okay, well, what if the second book was that much better? And what if the third book is that much better? And what if, right? And it can happen. And, I feel that way about my own writing. So I should feel that way about other people's writing too, right? What if the first book was, okay, it was good, but I saw something there that made me want to continue. And then, oh, wow, I get to book 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's like, no, man, I'm blown away. Thank God I continued with this series. So that's how I look at books now much more. Especially if it's a longer series, I'm much more willing to give it a chance and go, okay, even if the first book didn't wow me, I want to see what else is out there, right? I want to see what else this author's got. Because, hate to say this, but most authors, I know not Brand Sanderson because he's written a lot of books before he got to, the Way of Kings. But for a lot of authors, they get stronger and they get better as the series continues, and they get stronger as they write more books. And, that I think that's a fact. So why not give them a chance, right? So.
What about you, Colin?
Yeah. So kind of the older I get, the more I realize that speaking in absolutes kind of leaves me looking like the fool most of the time. I didn't even realize, I think, for years that I enjoyed fantasy because I didn't have the right idea of what fantasy was. And I think a lot of people are kind of in a similar boat as me. Like, I didn't watch Game of Thrones and think, oh, I'm watching an adult fantasy show. Like, I didn't know that's what it was. I just knew this is freaking sweet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even my wife, she's watching Supernatural right now, which is a show I've never watched all of it, but I got into some of it. And I'm like, babe, like, you're watching a show with like demons and possession and like talking about religion. Like, this is the stuff I read. Like, you'd probably love some of the stuff that I read. I just think that, like, especially for me, I haven't, like, my channel is really small. I haven't had a lot of people like come at me, and I also haven't kind of gotten into a lot of potentially controversial series, not controversial, but series that have really, really strong fan bases. But my experience thus far has been positive. And like, one of the reasons that I created a channel is because people like me exist. Like, people, I didn't know what I liked. Or I knew, like, I didn't know what to call what I liked. Like, I like adult fantasy. I like horror. And if I can help just like some people figure out that they like that, cool, that's awesome. Look where it's gotten me. Like, my life is so much more enriched by like the books and the content that I've been consuming over the last few years. And so why would I want to, even if I'm a super mega fan of something, like, I'm never going to try to keep somebody or bully them away or make them feel like foolish for not knowing this, that, or the other. I'm that kind of reader. Like, I love stuff, but I'm not a guy that remembers every last detail. I'm going to mess up names. I'm going to forget like some plot points and stuff like that. I hope somebody doesn't like kick me to the curb because of that. You know what I mean? So I just try to like be honest and be inclusive with people, and because that's how I was treated, like walking into this community and people's discords and people's commenting on people's channels. Like, nobody kicked me to the curb. You know what I mean? I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn about new authors and new books and stuff like that.
Well
Yeah, I
said.
hope I get big enough that I do get a hate comment. I'm like, I'm already.
That's when you know you've made it,
right? I'm already prepared for it. I already know what I'm replying. It's all up here already. I want somebody to tell me I suck. My reviews are trash. I'm dying for it.
It's this, when you're in the shower and you prepare for
Yeah.
imaginary
That's all I
situations. So you're
do.
like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm ready when this moment comes up.
I argue with people in my head, and I perfect my argument because I already know what I'm going to type to this person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think everyone does that.
Glad I'm not alone on that.
No.
I did want to mention, Christopher had a comment a little earlier that you put up, Steve, that was, the bigger the audience, the more of this stuff we get. That really, I love that comment because it's so true. Although I am frustrated that everyone is recycling the same 3 stories. I'm like, guys, look, there's so many out there. I know you don't want to take a risk, Hollywood or HBO or whatever, but for the love of God, like as someone who loves Harry Potter, I don't need a season per book. I just don't. Like there's so much out there. Or like Lord of the Rings, a revamp of that. We already have this stellar trilogy. That for me is something that bothers me. I'm like, yeah, well, there we go. Perfect. Someone asked us what we thought. I don't need it. And so I love that we're getting interest in more fantasy stuff, but I wish it was different fantasy stuff.
Yeah, has
Yeah.
anybody already played out the movie of The First Law in their head?
Oh yeah.
The scenes that you want to see, I have. I hope they hit me up when he's like finally like, yeah, I think I'm gonna take this to HBO. Like, hey, I got it all up here, man. We're good. Hit me up. And yes, it's about what works. And unfortunately, Hollywood, that's what they are caught on. Like, how many more Star Wars are we gonna see? How many more revamps of not even Harry Potter, but magic schools are we gonna see? And obviously the chosen one tropes and that, like, even being a newer reader, I am still not immune to the things I have seen in television and movies, and I crave for that newness. Like, I crave for something different. I'm not like, if you give me an action movie, I'm like, oh my God, I can't stand it. Like this, if I'm watching Fast and the Furious, like, this cannot happen in real life. This is not real life. And we have 7 of these damn things. And I make, my kids are like, oh, the next Fast and Furious is coming out. I'm like, oh, sweet. Let's go see Fast and the Furious 172. Japan, what is it? Tokyo Drift 7.
Drift.
Yeah, Tokyo Drift 7. Oh man. So I'm just, if you are regurgitating things, I think they did this with ER, the show ER, and then they slapped Grey's Anatomy right over ER, and you're getting the same things over and over, and it works. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's some Grey's Anatomy shows that are good. I'm not gonna lie, but it's just that's why I love fantasy, because you have so much more scope to deal with. You can do anything. And that just gives me so much more intrigue. I'm so much more invested if you're going to give me something that I haven't seen before.
And that's why I love indie fantasy in particular, because it is not just what's marketable right now, what the latest trend is now. You could read anything, literally anything in indie fantasy or an indie horror or indie romance or any indie genre or subgenre. You don't just have to worry about what can traditionally published Big Five sell right now, what's their hot thing right now, and what's selling for them. You don't have to worry about that, right? And it's true, like, hey, I like Law and Order, but how many Law and Orders can we have? How many FBIs can we have? How many CSIs can we have? How many, you name the show, Grey's Anatomy, like that's it. How many of these franchises can we have? And then, let's split into like 6 different ones, and let's do a crossover. Let's have NCIS on the moon. Let's have NCIS, in underwater. Let's have NCIS, so it would be so nice when there's so much out there to see, as Dan said, to see more, like, and we know that Hollywood takes a long time to get these things. You may write a book today, and 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, after you're dead, the rights go to someone, and then they turn it into they decide, okay, we're going to turn it into a TV show or a movie, right? So unfortunately, these things take a long time. So as it is, you don't see things for decades after it comes out, typically, right? Because of the way negotiation for rights and things work. But yeah, like, okay, but it would be nice to not, like, I love Game of Thrones. I love the franchise. I'm a big fan. I'm loving House of the Dragon. If they make the series about Aegon the Conqueror, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to love it, blah, blah. But there will come a point, even with Game of Thrones, that is like probably one of my favorite. I'll be like, okay, like you've done Duncan the Tall, you've done this, you've done that. Okay, are we going to see something different? You've done the Jon Snow, go ahead, you've done this. Like, at what point do we go, okay, we're tapped out from Game of Thrones, right? So
I do want to add just quickly, it like you said, it takes Hollywood a long time to get this stuff, and it makes it even more devastating when something like the Dark Tower movie comes out and nobody wants to touch that IP for so long, maybe ever again. Because I'm like, oh man, like no one's gonna want to touch that with a stick for years because of what happened for some of these things. Which is it's just devastating.
I think Flanagan is adapting it, right? I think Mike Flanagan.
I did hear that.
Finally.
I'm not getting my hopes up too high.
There have been whispers.
Yes.
I think another one that's been interesting is watching The Wheel of Time, because that one had a lot of hype around it. And I don't know if I was just spoiled growing up with the Lord of the Rings movies and the fact that the people that made those put so much into it and they had such a big budget, maybe, or it wasn't very CGI based. But for me, The Wheel of Time, there was something missing. Like the world was too clean or something. Like it didn't feel lived in. And I'm a chronic watch the first 3 episodes of something and never watch anything after. So it's not just The Wheel of Time that made me do that. But I did just watch a little bit of it and then stopped because I couldn't get invested. And it makes you worry about future adaptations, just because if you don't get the level of investment that the Lord of the Rings trilogy was lucky to get, we're probably going to get around this quality, right? This is what we're looking at. So, for someone who is dying to see the Greenbone saga on screen, it is built for a movie. I'm also terrified because
Taylor,
like you said, Colin,
Taylor, I completely agree with you. I hated. Hate is not a strong
I had a trigger
word
point.
enough.
Sorry, Epic.
No. I am completely agreeing with you. I hated the adaptation of The Wheel of Time. Like it was and I had a little conversation with PL about it, but I feel sorry for the people who never read the book and then watch the show, and then in their heads, that is Wheel of Time. I feel so sorry. Like, I'm devastated because of that. And it's not just about this attitude of milking the popular shows. It raises this attitude of also trying to commercialize the stories themselves. And when those stories become commercialized, they drain the essence of what made people love it in the first place. And it makes me nauseous. Like I'm serious. Like
that video is hilarious that Epic did. Everybody go watch it.
Oh, I did a rant.
That's awesome.
I have to go check it out.
I love it. Go check out Epic's rant. It's beautiful. Yeah. And AP talks. We've had AP on quite a few times. He's talked about adaptation. He's obviously this is a man who knows his stuff. He talks a lot about why adaptations have to be the way they are, and because of budgetary reasons, all kinds of reasons. But yeah, like I always say, like if someone was gonna say, Paul, we're gonna make an adaptation of the Drowned Kingdom saga, and they cut out like Epic said, the heart of the theme especially that I wrote in that book. Yeah, okay, I got paid, right? So I guess I'll be happy to a point, but I'll also be miserable, right? I'll be miserable because it's not. This isn't what I intended. This is a representation of what I wanted to see my book look like if it was on screen. So, it must be disappointing for the authors too, if they feel that way about, even if they've been consultants on the work and they've been really, sometimes the authors passed away or, whatever. But yeah, it's I think it'd be disheartening if you you got an adaptation and it wasn't like what you wrote. So
One that had pretty good acceptance in the beginning, and then it started to go down. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think was the Witcher. In the beginning, people seemed to kind of like that adaptation, even because I haven't read the books, but even those who had read it. And then recently, I've seen kind of some talk about. I think the main character, he's leaving or something like that. And people are really upset about that.
Henry Cavill is leaving, and they're switching out the main character, who's the Witcher, right? And it's funny. Witcher is one of those series where I've only read a couple of books, but I didn't read them until after I watched the show, the first show, and I loved the first season, and I really enjoyed the second season too. But I think that's always another story when if you watch a show that's adapted for TV or movies and you don't read the books and you love the movie, but then you read the books and the books, or vice versa. I think that can be heartbreaking too, right? Because I know for me it's more traumatizing if I watch the show and then the books don't live up to snuff. For me, that's where I'm the most kind of heartbroken. If I read the books and they're amazing and the show is, I feel like, okay, well, whatever, they screwed up and that's the fault of the producers and blah blah. But if I watch show and love it, and the books are just kind of like, that's when I feel like, that more disappoints me. So
Yeah, like they were moving away from the original stuff, and I think Henry Cavill had a big issue with that because he's a huge fan of the books, so he had an issue with them trying to steer away from like the original work, and it caused problems apparently. So,
yeah, exactly. He's a purist when it comes to adaptation. Yeah, kudos to him, right? I mean, he's now off of two big franchises, but we'll see where he goes from there. He's no longer playing Superman. And he's no longer doing The Witcher. So we'll see.
There's a campaign online for him to be Aegon in Aegon's Conquest.
Yeah, I would love him to be Aegon. I think that would be awesome. I think he would love Aegon. So
yeah, he already looks like a Targaryen in the Witcher series anyway. So
yeah, with that hair and stuff,
the long hair.
Yeah, and then plus if you read, especially if you read Fire and Blood. Aegon is like that strong, silent type, and that's what he does so well in The Witcher. Just those well-timed lines, and like I can see him being that guy. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I feel what Taylor said about the Lord of the Rings, and like those shots were just too clean. Like if I'm watching a show that is a fantasy show, and the actress comes into the scene and they're out in the middle of the wilderness and they've been there for 27 weeks and she's got eyeshadow on, that ruins it for me. I'm out. I'm like, no way. That it's just it can be that small. Are you got eyeshadow on, sweetie? Like, where did you get this? Did you take some bugs and smush them up and get it done before you came out of your tent? Like, people should be stinking. People need to be hairy. You know what I mean? Like I want to smell.
I feel
that
you.
scene.
I was like, at least put a smudge on the cheek or something. That artful smudge of dirt. At least give me that.
But no, they got perfect, curl up ones. I'm like, what? Who's doing this makeup, man? You guys are in the middle of the wilderness.
No. If you go online and you watch like people critiquing the Lord of the Rings, it's almost as if the studio, like they say they spend so much money, but in some places with the crowd, they just copy and paste that copy. Like it's so.
You're talking about the new one now, or
the new one, the new one,
Rings of Power,
the new one. And like even in the first one, they did a lot of copy and pasting to like fill in space and everything. But not in a way like you didn't know that until the studio made a whole documentary telling you, all we did here was just copy and paste. But in this one, you can see someone standing here and you can see someone standing there, and they're doing the exact same movements. So it's obvious to tell. And it was like every time an episode came out, I forget his name, but he's a YouTuber as well. He would just criticize the movie and just point out, this is an editing mistake. Like, how could they have missed? There's just something off. There's just something.
How much money
off.
did they pay for that?
I know.
Missed
yeah.
something like that. Come on.
They missed out on so many key details.
Yeah, that's rough. And there's parts of Rings of Power I really did enjoy. So don't get me wrong, but as a whole, it was lacking. It's not that there weren't good parts to it or there weren't good things about it, but as a whole, like the sum of the parts was like, oh, it just left some things that didn't really.
I
Didn't
was
really.
just talking to one of my buddies who's a big Lord of the Rings fan the other day about this, and I don't know like what it was with. I've never read or watched Wheel of Time, but I think it might be kind of similar to what Taylor was kind of mentioning earlier. Like with Rings of Power, I feel like they didn't choose a lane in terms of catering to like the greater audience or the diehard fans. Like I feel like there were some nods if you're a diehard Lord of the Rings fan to some things that maybe like a general audience person wouldn't have picked up on, but they didn't choose a lane, and I wasn't really compelled by the show. Like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like I didn't need to watch the next episode. I never felt like I needed to watch the next episode right away with that show. And that kind of like I don't know if it was because they didn't choose a
Wait.
lane or what it was. I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of we were talking about that the other day.
I think that's just an exceptional point. I think that with something like that, you almost had to, and I know the issue was they didn't have the rights to the Silmarillion, they didn't have the rights to some of the source material. But at the same time, I think you nailed the head, Colin, that you should have gone really totally, completely bold, inventive, and just not even had, maybe any of the characters that you've ever seen before and got something totally new and just made it feel like, okay, this is all really inventive rather than have, kind of like a semi-origin story. And I think for a lot of people, especially, I think even though we get it that she starts off as this hardcore kind of more obsessive, more bitter, like General and stuff, Galadriel, she turns into this, but people just didn't take to it right away. They just are like,
Yeah.
that's just not, as much as you can understand how it was, they just, so they lost people with that. So yeah, I totally agree. They should have either kept really close to canon stuff, or they should have just gone totally. I wouldn't even have used any of the characters that they would have been maybe just background character, but like main characters would have been totally neat. So
Kind of reminds me of, there was a comment earlier comparing The Hobbit to the original trilogy. It reminds me of what they were like, just throw Legolas in there, whatever, and it's like, come on, no one asked for this. No one asked for him to be jumping on rocks. We got the skateboarding on the shield
stairs,
scene, and that was good. Just we don't need we don't
what
need him in
was
there.
everybody's issue with The Hobbit? I guess I wasn't a big Lord of the Rings fan. I like those movies. I thought they were great, and I see there's a lot of hate in the Twitter sphere about The Hobbit. And
that's kind of refreshing to hear, actually. that you.
I really like we finally got a dragon, man. When that eye opens, I was just like, oh my god, I'm coming back for the next movie as soon as it opens. And I didn't, and then it didn't occur to me that there was so much hate until I got into the booktube community, and I'm like, why? I'm like, am I missing? It's like when you read that book and you're like, this is horrible, and everybody says it's so good. It's like, is it me? And you're like, I thought The Hobbit was pretty good. That's just my opinion.
I think that's good for us to hear, though, because we forget how insular the booktube community is and how much commercial success that set of movies probably had. So I think for me, it was just knowing that the source material was this little kid's book here. It just felt so bloated. Like it was just it felt like an obvious money grab to me as someone who was coming from the source material. So I think every time they added a new, like throw in Legolas, throw in, this other person that doesn't exist. I understand having to create new creatures, maybe to give more dynamic scenes, because it is a kid's book, right? So if you want to create an action movie, you're going to have to change some things. But for me, it felt so obviously like bloated that I couldn't really take it seriously. I agree that Smaug was done great. I think they did a good job of showing the impact of a dragon in that world. I think that was wonderful, but I couldn't take it seriously after a while.
Yeah, I think I agree, Taylor, totally. I think they want to turn especially the Battle of the Five Armies into the Siege of Pelennor, and also do Helm's Deep, and also do with the different installments. They wanted all the battle scenes, especially in The Hobbit, to be as spectacular as in the main series, and as big, and actually bigger and longer. They felt longer, right? And I think that's what they were trying to do, because they were looking at the success of the Lord of the Rings movies. They're going, okay, well, we have to, normally The Hobbit would have been one movie, right? It would have been one movie. You'd have big battle at the end, but no, they had to really. I think, like you said, it was all about money. And they were banking on that. Okay, well, if we make this so much bigger, and the Battle for Army so spectacular, and stretch over a couple of different installments, that it was all about that.
What are you, Colin? Are you a fan of the movies of The Hobbit?
I've actually never watched them. Not on purpose. I just when they were coming out, I had not read Lord of the Rings yet. I mean, I'd seen Lord of the Rings movies back when they came out and over the years, but it just never was on my radar. I probably will now go back just to see how they are. I know they catch a lot of flack, like Taylor was saying, in our community, but I also it's so easy to forget how small this community actually is once you're in it. Fantasy book readers and fantasy book content creators is not a large community of people compared to the general audience that watch The Hobbit. So, I mean, if they made 3 movies, that means that somebody was interested in them, probably. So I'll give them a shot at some point for sure. But yeah, I never got around to it.
Yeah. I haven't seen them either, so I'm not going to say.
Nice.
I wouldn't, some people say don't bother. I wouldn't say they're that level. I wouldn't say don't bother. If you're interested, go for it. So.
Are they kids movies?
No. The book is a kid's book.
I know the book's a kid's book, but I didn't know how the movies were.
I think
I wouldn't
that's part
say
of the
they're
problem.
too gory. Yeah,
Okay.
I think they wanted to make it more adult. I don't personally. I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's a lot of gore, but there's definitely battles and.
No, there's a lot of gore.
Death.
There's
a lot of gore.
They're no, there isn't a lot of gore.
The first 3 there's a good bit of blood, I believe, with the orcs and stuff like that. Is it Peter Jackson? He did the first.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong? Mm-hmm. Yeah, those 3 are they're just that they won 97 Oscars for a reason, but The Hobbit, it did seem like they kind of made it more juvenile and for a wider audience, I would believe. But if you haven't seen the first 3, I would suggest go. I mean, I've
watched the main trilogy. I've watched that. My wife and I just watched that recently.
Probably one of the best adaptations ever done of a fantasy book, in my opinion.
I'm trying to delicately choose when to read. The Hobbit's one of my favorite books. When to read it with my daughter, because I want her to feel that. You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
Can't miss that chance,
No. I don't want to mess that one up.
Gotta make it count. The time always flies. We're almost up to 2 hours already. Yeah, it just flies by. But before we sign off, Dan, can you tell us where to find you and a little bit about your channel?
Come check me out. I think you can type in Black and Blue Collar Reader. I hope I pop up. If I don't, you'll see me in comments on other people's channel. You can click on me there, and I'll be around.
Nice. Colin?
Yeah. Similarly, my YouTube. If you search Colin's Corner, I think the first guy that comes up is some tech guy that has a channel called Colin's Corner, so we need to usurp him.
With 1 L. You have to type in Colin.
Yeah, Colin's Corner with 1 L.
I typed in 2 when I was looking for him, and he disappeared on me. So 1 L.
Yeah, if you type in Colin's Corner YT, that should come up. But I have my links to my Instagram and my Twitter on there. I'm pretty active on those as well. So yeah, come find me.
Yes, and Mr. Stewart.
Usually find me beside Taylor and Steve on Page Chewing most of the time. Before we go blog, most of my reviews where I'm an assistant editor, and on Goodreads reviews there. My Twitter is my preferred social media handle. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter is where I'm alone. That's at PL Stewart Writes. And for the books, the Drowned Kingdom Saga, A Drowned Kingdom, The Last Atlanteans, and Book 3, Lord and King, dropping at the end of the month, part of a 7-book series. That, check out the website, www.plstewart.com.
Nice. Mr. Epic?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. I'm a booktuber, EpicTalez. And check out my channel if you like it. Give me a subscribe, and thank you.
Nice. And Taylor?
As PL mentioned, you can find me besides Steve and PL often on Page Chewing Friday Conversations or Page Chewing, the other version of this. My channel is Made Between the Pages, which is below me during this chat. You can find me also on Twitter. I share a lot of book stuff on there. I do write reviews for Before We Go blog as well as an assistant editor along with PL. You can also find my reviews on Goodreads. Some of them are in a more official capacity, like Before We Go blog, and some are just like, this book fucked me up, So you can see both types of my reviews on Goodreads. But that's pretty much Steve's laughing, but it's true. I just read Elder Epoch, the arc from Zamiel. Watch out. That book actually gave me effed up dreams for 2 days. So
what's it called?
He goes
Elder Epoch by Jamil Akhtar. His Gunmetal God series slap.
Gunmetal Gods, yeah, okay.
It is awesome.
Yeah, the first one is Gunmetal Gods.
And that's was it the third or the second book?
That's the third, and it's a trilogy.
He's talking about. You can get him on Kindle on for free. I think he's on the Kindle Unlimited. So that might be a download real soon.
Yeah,
highly recommend. The Eldritch horror. I was like having dreams that I would rather not have had. So anyway, you can find my reviews on Goodreads. I think that about sums me up. Thanks for having me, as always.
Of course, yeah. So you can find me on pagechewing.com on the forums or on Vero, where I post pretty much everything. So you can find me there too. But Gunmetal Gods is excellent. Dan, I think you'll really like it. So, but thanks to all of you for taking time out of your Friday to hang out, or Saturday morning, Taylor. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Of course.
You should do this again every Friday. Oh wait, you already did. But invite me again. I'd love to do it again.
Okay. Don't tell us.
Likewise.
That.
Yeah, it will happen.
You'll hear from us. So
awesome.
Yeah. And Epic, thank you for making it last minute. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to see you, Epic.
Yeah, it was wonderful to meet all of you guys.
Yes.
I didn't know a lot of you. I've been talking to Steve, but it was great to meet you guys.
Taylor, yep.
You too.
Cool, everybody. Well, have a great rest of your weekend and hope to see you all soon.